it really started coming out of the fire that really burned inside me, that fire of desire to go become someone. And what I now only look back and realize is that there's all these years I was running from something. I was never running towards anything.
What's up, guys? Sam Taggart here with the D2D Podcast, and we got a sweet episode, a little treat today. And if you haven't heard me as your host for a minute, how we doing? I hope everybody's happy. We got Door-to-Door Con coming up January 8th and 9th. You better effing get your tickets. Don't be a little punk. And bring your team. And we also got Eat What You Kill coming out, guys. I want to give you guys some background. Eat What You Kill is a book that I wrote for the last 2.5 years. And it finally is on pre-order. January 15th is the launch, and I could use every one of your guys' helps. Get it for your team, get it for everybody, because it is a big deal. Like, we have like so many books out there on sales, but not many. And my first one, ABCs of Closing, was good. It's got some tactical stuff. We sold thousands and thousands of copies, but this one will be a like bestseller is the goal. So like having something out there that teaches the carnivore mindset and sales tactics that really go out and eat what you kill is kind of a missing spot in the world, and we need to put it on the map. So it helped me help the world become more carnivore-like and capitalist, and just go and be the hunter, not the pacifist. So anyway, guys, I have a special guest today, and we have the most unconventional way of meeting. And so there's going to be a long lead up to me to introduce this guy, because this podcast can be lit. I go get asked like 2 days before, hey, do you want to fly in a Blackhawk helicopter by the Muscle and Heavy D? They were like, you want to come with us to Arizona to Dean Graciosi's thing? And we'll fly in there from Utah to Arizona on a Blackhawk. And I meet him at 5 a.m. And this dude rolls in looking like the miniature version of Ed Milet, like big muscles, sharp heck look, you know what I mean? I'm just like, who's this guy? He's like, oh, I'm coming with you. I was like, all right. There's like 6 of us or so that hopped on this helicopter, and we had a couple-hour flight at 50 feet above the ground, chasing wild stallion horses, flying through the Grand Canyon and Lake Powell just above the water. You know what I mean? Like the most epic flight, talking through headphones, and got to spend some meaningful time with this individual. But what I learned over this whole experience of meeting him is just like, what a powerful soul. I got to see him speak on stages since then. I've got to see him and listen to some of the podcasts he's done, and just has impacted millions of people's lives, and, you know, built from the ground up from retail sales, and had an empire of building those, and jewelry to land development and real estate. And now he's just helping mentor, you know, entrepreneurs and individuals and high performers at just being the best version of themselves. So welcome to the show, Erik. Happy to have you on, man.
I appreciate you, Sam, and congrats on the book. I want to ask you, I didn't get a chance to ask you, but Eat What You Kill, what a great title. How long did that come? Did that come to you right away, or did you work on that title? That's genius.
No, the title was not come early. Like we knew we wanted to write a sales book and make it general, not like door-to-door specific, right. But I also wanted my flavor of door-to-door in it. And so it was kind of like, how do we build this? And actually the title came after writing the book. And, you know, as we kind of started to go through all the chapters, it's like got 80 chapters, and it's like very digestible chapters. And I was like, what is like a title that really embodies like who we are, what we do? And it's that concept of just like, this is a dying breed of like, eat what you kill. Like, you know, there's so many people that are wanting handouts today.
It's so true. I mean, there's a lot of symbolism there. It's powerful.
So I guess to you in your life, where are some moments that you had to embody that concept? Like you had to go knock, you had to go eat what you kill. Like, how did that, like, where did that how does that resonate in your life story? Yeah.
You know, it's funny. I put a lot of thought this year, probably more this year than ever, this idea of winning in general, this, you know, this perspective of what winning is. And I think that over time, the definition of winning has definitely changed for me. And as I really considered what can I possibly do that'll have some great impact in the world, starting to really think about legacy and mission and real purpose, and sort of guiding me outside of sort of the normal walls of winning that I put so much energy. And it kind of led me to this reality that all the greatest books in the world, all the greatest works of art, the greatest literature, there's there's been so much information that's come out of some of the most incredible people that have ever lived, going back all the way to the days of Jesus Christ and beyond. And so what could I possibly say on this topic? And I was part of an event that really sparked this thought. It was in the early summer of this year. It was a digital event with a bunch of like world-changing humans on there, great people. Tim Tebow was on there, just all kinds of game-changing individuals. But the idea is to tell your story of winning, like the real story of winning, your story of winning. And I really considered it, and I started going into a lot of my framework stuff that really worked for me, that was valuable. And at some point I kind of pulled back. I just had this moment of reflection where I realized like none of this is like, nothing's like really going to move someone's life or sort of change them. And when I thought really deeply about this topic, I realized the only thing that's going to be unique to me, that is really going to connect the dots to where winning showed up in my life, was to go into a place that I'd never gone before. And it was the first time in my life that I ever really told my story. And the concept that I really kind of stumbled upon as I was battling with what my message is going to be kind of became one of the keynotes of my life. But it was a story that I started telling that I never told the world before. So much of the people that know me over the last 20 years, they know the version of me that I decided for the world to know, but I didn't really ever share with who I used to be. So as my evolution of me changed, so did this last onion layer sort of that came out of me as I slowly stepped in the light, was my real story, who I really was. And in the early years of business, when I got into entrepreneurship, one of the greatest drugs of my life was entrepreneurship. It was this concept that if anybody knows the truth of me, my customers know the truth about me, they won't want to shop with me, they won't want to buy from me. If anybody knows the real truth of where I come from, they won't let their families go near me. And so I had so much shame and so much guilt, and so much of the child that still lived in me that I claimed I'd murdered, I didn't realize all these years was actually the one making a lot of the decisions. And that early concept of sort of, if you want to connect it to eat what you kill, that it really started coming out of the fire that really burned inside me, that fire of desire to go become someone. And what I now only look back and realize is that for all these years, I was running from something. I was never running towards anything. And so just the true nature of where I started finding wins in my life and truly eating what I killed, going out and hunting and really taking grip and hold of my life, a lot of that was from the emotions that really sparked this fire. And again, right or wrong, it led me to all the places in life that are pretty rare in life. A lot of financial freedom starts existing out of some of these places where the outcomes of your fire produce results that everyone else wants. And it became sort of an addictive process. This always pushing the limits of what's possible, like fighting so hard, like developing culture, learning how to sell, like learning how to be valuable as a human. The one thing I really missed through the process of being a person that, would find a target, hunt it down, kill it and eat it, would be the bigger meaning of life and that bigger connection to purpose. So this evolution has changed, but to your point, to pinpoint it, it's the fire of desire that burns in a person. I've argued so often that you could have all the talent in the world and do nothing with it. So it has to be something more than just your God-given abilities. So if you look back throughout history and your story and everyone's story, there's probably a fire in you that's unique to you, that's burning in you, that's connected to your story. And that's something I've really taken a deep interest in, as I've really tried to understand the psychology of why some people win, but so many people don't. So many people don't come near their greatest potential, they're near their greatest purpose. So I guess that fire of desire that burns in a person is something I've really identified as maybe one of the core components that needs to be exposed if you're ever going to expect to go out and really do something rare in this world. Love
that. Do you, oh man, there's like three directions I want to go with this. So let's rewind back. You had a furniture consignment empire. You said it was one of the largest in the country.
Right.
And we always make fun of the furniture salesman, no offense. And I use this analogy of you're a furniture salesman, you waiting for somebody to come in to a store to buy a couch or buy furniture. And the traditional furniture salesman, it's sweet, we got a customer, run in and sell them a couch or whatever, right? And you've taken that a lot farther, but I'm assuming you sat with a lot of herbivores going, hey, how do you do more marketing, get more people in our store? Nobody showed up today. No wonder I can't hit my quota unless we got more people, right? I'm sure you heard that story how many times?
Yeah, trust me, man. So much of what you teach really resonates with me, and even my own story in traditional brick and mortar retail. Because you're right, you're kind of dependent on so many market cycles. There's seasons of the year, there's down seasons, up seasons. Our first store was really small, and I lived in the upstairs office on a blow-up mattress with my new wife, and I knew nothing about furniture, absolutely nothing. So again, going back to my fire, but I did have a fire. I remember our first customer ever walked in our door, and it was Peggy Coleman. She was consignor number one for me. And to this day, she holds a very special spot in my heart. The one instinct that sort of came out of me, and I don't know if it was divine or whatnot, but it's the only thing I really, truly believed in, was this concept of customer service was the only thing that I knew I had to master and figure out. So from that first customer, she became everything to me. Every customer that walked in the door, they became everything. And this was these early instincts that I started having to figure out. And a lot of what I learned throughout the years as I started to build a little bit of momentum was just the value of every customer that walks in. And we've talked about this before, but my customers actually started slowly teaching me everything I needed to know about furniture. I didn't even know one brand when I got into the business. And it was my customers that slowly taught me. And as I started learning more and becoming more valuable, really the one thing that never changed was my commitment to my customers. Whether that be like we screwed up and we got to take an L, or it was a bad review, or whatever happens in business, my approach to the whole thing was no matter what it takes, we're going to turn that 1 into a 5 somehow. And that sort of slowly started serving me over time.
So then you started making more stores. And I think this is where a lot of people in business, there's kind of almost like I'm a sales rep, I'm an entrepreneur, and now I'm a scaling entrepreneur. And when you opened up that second, third, fourth store, obviously there's a lot of systems and process and nuance and getting a general manager and all the things that come with that. What's some advice you'd give a business owner that's at that place where he's like, I'm ready for my second location, I'm ready to start expanding? As you did a national expansion, like what are some things that you would avoid? What are some things that are best practices to that?
Yeah,
so maybe those looking to scale.
Again, like, it's funny, when you're in business, you're in the trenches and in the fight. And again, a lot of this was pre-social media. So the access to people like you and information, it's not so readily available. And it's hard to read in a book, like, compared to just being in the fire of doing it. And a lot of good instincts carried me good places. A lot of bad instincts carried me places. But the one thought that became reoccurring in my mind that I think was really valuable is trying to learn how to replicate myself. And it really started in people that were naturally employees in my work environment that I saw a lot of potential in, and they had a lot of energy. They always wanted to work. I didn't need to have the smartest guy necessarily. It could have been someone that came from jail at one point, a few years prior. But I really started honing in on the guys that I could start building up and pouring into. And that really freed me up to do a lot of other things outside of the businesses by at least first and foremost creating another me. And if you really, in a broad spectrum, look back at all my greatest 10x moves that I ever made, it was always because I had the freedom to spot an opportunity that I could go execute on because I wasn't tied to the day-to-day operations, especially when it come to real estate. And that was one of the big core components to our growth, was being able to spot opportunities and dig in. And so being able to remove myself first and foremost outside of the processes that could bury you all day if you didn't find a way to exit it, it probably would have led me to not those opportunities that forced us to expand, because it was always a real estate deal from my perspective that sort of set the groundwork for the next move forward. And if you're in the day-to-day operation, it's very hard to sort of get outside of that bubble. And a lot of things get exposed when you step outside of it. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, sometimes you can be even surprised with how much better you are outside of the business working on it than being sort of stuck in it. So again, you can get into the weeds in this question and all the systems and the technology and all the sort of scalable concepts. But the main thing that I would land here is being able to sort of put yourself in a position where the person that's taking your spot in that one store is better than you. If you can create that sort of intrinsic value in another person, their connection to not just a carrot that's dangling in front of them, but their belief in your vision and your dream, it's good enough to fit everybody's. And that's a core concept in really not just setting the vision, but then you being the one that goes out and executes on it. And when they see that, that buy-in and sort of commitment to what you're building becomes so much greater. That the biggest trick, I think, in that process was, if I say I'm going to go do something big, a lot of people roll their eyes, they smile to your face. But then when they see you go execute on it, and he puts it in motion, and then they see you land the deal, close the deal, and now it's real, all of a sudden people start really trusting you and believing, well, hey, maybe he could get me to my dream. 2 years ago, I was in jail and now selling drugs. And now all of a sudden I'm making, 6 figures a year, opportunities everywhere. I'm around a train that's moving fast. These were just those first instincts that are really powerful perspective shifters, I think, when you're thinking about someone at that stage, or how they're going to advance to the next position.
So important. And I mean, guys, there's so many things you said in there, just from something sparked when you said something about them. You found your core people, you invested in those people, regardless of their background, you developed them. People is a huge thing. And I think so many times we get stuck in the process and stuck in the systems, the tech. There's many different ways to software is this and KPI this, and you know what I mean? But like what you said in the people, but the other side of that is like who you have to become. Like you have to be willing to step out, like you said. Like that's the thing. Like a lot of people aren't willing to step out and start working on their business and looking at it from like the outside in, because we are so stuck in the trenches a lot of times. Yeah. And so as you've developed in your career, I'm sure you've learned a lot of life lessons and helped a lot of people. And we'll wrap on this because I want to be respectful of your time. Like what would be one piece of advice as people go on a personal development journey? Obviously they're this far into a podcast. They're obviously not listening to some, Miley Cyrus song right now as they, are working out, or they're in their car or wherever you're at, listening to this. But like, what advice would you give somebody as they go along their personal development journey to make sure that they maximize the most out of that and accelerate their journey the fastest?
Wow. Just to touch on something you said real quick, as far as respect to my time, 1:00 Pacific time, in case you're.
Oh, okay. Because I was like,
so I could tell you're feeling pressured for time. So no, I got an hour and 4 minutes before my next call, but we go as long as or short as you want. But to speak to that, it's funny. If you asked me that 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, or 20 years ago, every year it'd probably be a different answer. So depending on what season I'm at in life, sort of, if I'm going to give my honest perspective of what's most valuable in one of the biggest needle moving sort of connections to an emotion that likely is the thing that breaks the thing you're scared of, it would have been a different answer at different times, because the things I leveraged to do scary things even 5 years ago were so much different than now. And as bizarre as this may sound, and maybe it doesn't, I've really taken on a stoic sort of perspective on life as I've gotten older. I've become really fond of Marcus Aurelius and the teachings, and really this concept of memento mori, that death is inside every decision that I make. And as morbid as that may sound, it's actually become one of the most fruitful thoughts that connects me to something that is so powerful and divine. It's very hard to explain, but it changes not just the frequency in the decision itself, but it really changes the outcome. I've seen more often than not, even though I'm never attached to outcome, it's always being really obsessed about falling in love with the process. But somehow death, it takes all the chips off the table that don't really have value. It takes all the chess pieces this way that are clouding my real vision, and it really leaves the most important things on the table. So I find that I move much swifter with much more value and much more intention through the game of life when I really look at it as like, man, in a week, what will you do right now if you could have a crystal ball and say, all right, what's next week look like? And it's not what you thought. You just got in a car accident, sideswiped by a big truck, and you're dead. And how did the emotions of this moment and this moment play, knowing that I'm probably not going to make different decisions, but maybe I can make the same decisions with more love, with more kindness, with more fun involved, with a better frequency. And what you find is when you can start bringing that to every moment in life, you start making different decisions, and the needle starts moving in different ways. And I think the place that it more intrinsically connects faster than anything in the world, even in small moments, is to purpose, where you're really making the most out of all your time. And you can ask that question no matter what you're feeling. It could be anxiety, pressure, stress. Stress is such a killer to your health, by the way. But these moments when you are in the reaction mode of things that stop you, sort of that amygdala response to fear that stalls you in life, These are some of the greatest gateways to sort of rewire yourself in the moment to make a better decision or a decision with a different energy that really almost slows down time for me personally. Everything is because I'm where my feet are. I'm here. I'm with you. I'm not nearly as much at this stage of my life in the future as I used to be. I'm much more sort of present. And what I found is it just makes time slow down, but you have to work at this at all times. So you build the system of bringing death into the equation. And I find it just makes my time more valuable.
I love that. Well, I've got a special treat for you. Get over here, D. You wanted to come say hi.
You are
hey, D.
amazing individual, and I'm always inspired by the words that come out of your mouth. You are a gift to all of us, so thank you for being that.
Oh, I love you, D. You guys are amazing. I feel the same way about both of you.
She just showed up, and I was like, well, Rick, get over here, girl. And D has a million questions, so I'm going to let D ask the next one. And she's got her podcast guest showing up here at 1. So she was going to be in the studio anyway, so I was like, let's not rush it. But if you could ask one question to Erik, what question would you ask?
I guess my question is where does your good heart come from? And why do you stand so true to just your truth, and the way you show up?
That's probably one of the best questions I've ever had asked. And if I had to really go into probably the real psychology of how I've gotten to this place, again, with so much fight, so much intention, so much willpower, so much being misunderstood for so many years. It's this little boy inside me that still lives. And what's crazy is for so long, I used to have this thing that I said so often that kid in me is dead. I murdered him. He's never coming back. And I really believe that. I believe that I murdered that kid that made some terrible decisions, that was a good baseball player that had so much ambitions in high school, that had so many big dreams, that spent thousands of hours as a child dreaming of those 2 second on the clock moments in life. And those all died with my identity when I had these 2 surgeries that took me out and introduced me to OxyContin in the late 90s, when they were pumping that stuff out like crazy. And that's the version of me that sort of is the one I'm most ashamed of, even beyond all the other things that I had to over battle in my life. And I was so ashamed. And when I came out of it, when I ended up facing 25 to life in prison. I worked with a DA for 2 years. I mean, it just so much hell. It's almost hard to remember because I hadn't even talked about it for so many years. Half of my life, I've failed to tell anybody about it. So when I made a decision to go be the person that with this one chance left in life, the one thing I did is I buried that version. And I think a lot of the decisions I made came from so much guilt and shame and embarrassment. And I just decided he was dead. And the crazy part is nobody knew. Everything was a secret. My family didn't know. No one knew how bad it really got for me. When you look in the mirror at 20 years old and you can't even recognize your soul, you're off to college, even though you've dropped out a year ago. Everything was a lie. Everything was a racket. Everything was a manipulation. You were so good at putting on the face when you needed to. You can make everything look perfect when you're really dying inside. And then some of the crucial mistakes you make in that state of mind. I was selling kilos of cocaine to Hell's Angels, and I was just a little kid. I just was a kid trying to play this big man's game because I was addicted to all these crazy drugs. But to be able to come out of that and then never reveal your truth and then go on to start winning, because I took all that fuel and I put it into business. That, like I said, entrepreneurship was the greatest drug. Between endorphins and the gym and entrepreneurship, it was the 2 drugs that I became addicted to that saved my life. The one thing that was missing was purpose. The one thing was missing was real mission and real meaning. And how can you possibly have any kind of positive impact in the world if you don't go speak to the child that used to be, the kid that made the mistakes? And that's the thing, is I was so perfect because I projected that all those years, all that winning, all that getting material things to show that I'm a good human. Hey, Dad, you see, I'm a winner now. I'm winning, even to myself. Hey, you're a winner now. Everything was about proving myself just because I was so afraid of who I really was. But at 40 years old now, kind of looking at death, it changed everything. Getting around people that were doing life in a way that I never thought I could. It slowly forced me to reveal the racket of my life and the real truth of my life. And in that process, this is what has developed, and this is what it is, because every time I do these vulnerable things, get on a stage, it's like I could feel like they could see right through me. And so the only thing that can sort of overpower those emotions that get me to want to run is I shake, and as my heart flutters and the butterflies hit, is just to go to this heavy place. And in all this, kind of to land the point, that little kid that I thought I murdered, I only realize it now, but I never murdered him. I realized he was always sort of living inside me. He was the one making all those decisions. I just failed to look at him. And how ironic, for half my life as a kid, I was desperate to be seen. And in all these years, I've failed to look at that kid that was desperate to be seen in his childhood. So as this thing comes full circle now, I realize where my greatest power is and my greatest potential, but it doesn't mean it feels good. It doesn't mean it's easy. It's just my story.
Wow. Wow.
Wonderful.
Guys, you heard it firsthand. Erik Rock in the house. What a rock. No, dude, like solid. And really do appreciate how you show up for the world and what you're doing. And you can tell like your mission is genuine and you care to like really make a difference. And not many people get vulnerable and put their neck on the line to really make a difference. And guys, you can go check out, Man on the Mission podcast with Erik and, some of the stuff that he's doing. And yeah, what a cool guest. Like, I really do appreciate you and the time that we get to spend together, and hope to be seeing you in more of our stuff. And thanks for being on, man.
Yeah, I'm grateful for you guys. It's fun to have friends like you. I do so well against people that have your vibration in life. It's amazing.
Love it. Love it. We'll be in touch, brother. We'll talk soon.
Appreciate you. See you guys.